what I've noticed in our state and others, the sustainability and going green initiatives essentially end up meaning, whether or not that was their intention or not, was to essentially sustain the way of life that we have without causing further damage. And that ends up involving a lot of great infrastructure change that does benefit our populations and our environment. But that infrastructure change ends up costing communities a lot more money by raising housing costs and costs of living for a lot of people in communities. So the question I'm asking is sort of a double-edged sword, because I feel that sustainability and going green isn't enough, but ecological regeneration is what we should be aiming for. And that requires a cultural shift. So what policies or initiatives are or should be in place that would promote a cultural shift towards ecological healing in our state that won't also displace our poorest and most ethnically diverse populations?
Can you just unpack that phrase, ecological regeneration, for us?
Healing our environment, not just like, okay, so, yeah. Ecological regeneration, so like rebuilding soil fertility, truly cleaning and making our ecosystems more thriving and more diverse, more viable.
I'm going to challenge the premise that a lot of green initiatives are actually harmful to underprivileged populations. I think a lot of the work that we see has a direct economic benefit to people who don't have a lot to begin with. I'll throw out an example of a housing project that Crossroads built, where it happens to be a LEED project, but their overall goal was to take families who were at risk for homelessness, actually were homeless, build houses for them, and essentially these folks pay what they can afford while they go through job training or school, get jobs and support their families. You take a family that was paying $300 a month for their gas bill, and they're only earning maybe $800 a month. Reduce that bill down to $100. Like, guess what? Now they can pay their doctor co-pays. Now they can actually pay for field trips for their kids at school. It's a huge benefit to be savings on your energy bills, and that's across the board. Everybody can use a little bit of extra money in their pocket. So, I don't necessarily buy the premise that these infrastructure investments don't have an immediate payback that is swift and really readily felt. But I think the broader question is that maybe what you're getting at is how can these incremental change fundamentally change the way our society operates? And I think that's the big picture that some very smart people are tackling. I'm not sure we're going to answer it tonight.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of that. I think investments in public transit, for instance, really lower the cost for everybody of getting around. So it makes quality of life go up for everyone. It is incremental, say.
But when we're talking about public transportation, are we talking about anything other than buses in this state?
Well, we do have commuter rail, which is not robust, but they're talking about expanding it down south farther than it is. Right now it goes down to Wickford in North Kingstown. They're talking about sending it up northwest, up the Blackstone Valley, maybe even connecting to Worcester eventually, bringing it down to Kingston, connecting it eventually to New London. But yeah, mainly we're talking about buses here. We're not going to put in a subway system at this point, I don't think. People talk about a streetcar in Providence, but the project is small. It might happen, but it's a big investment, and we'll see where it goes. So mainly we're talking about RIPTA, we're talking about buses, and I think expanding the service area and expanding the amount of time that they're running and increasing the frequency that the buses are getting to those stops. Right now, people are being left behind at the bus stops. We have, packed buses. One of the really most used transit systems for its size in the country. So that's a big social justice issue, honestly. Increasing our investment in transit. I think there's a lot to be said about doing our farming in new ways and encouraging worker cooperatives, farming cooperatives, new economy type of stuff that is beyond the scope of our conversation tonight, Greg. But we'll get there. I forget where I was going next. But Yeah, I did, basically I want to push back on that fact that I think energy efficiency as well brings down the cost of living for low-income families. So these are investments that we can make. Even renewables eventually are a great investment for people. It's just the upfront cost that's prohibiting a lot of lower-income people. But we can enact policies that help, amortize that cost over years. Already there's a program that'll be going into place at the municipal level called the PACE program, which will, it's for property owners really, so not real poor people. But it'll allow people to defray the cost of renewable energy systems over 20 years. We're working on making it more affordable to invest in renewable energy. There are programs for energy efficiency for low-income households. Public transit would be a great investment. So, going green is not going to be bad for low-income folks.
You, sir, in the back.